Welcome to Learn Law Better, where today we are going to discuss the story behind Pennoyer v. Neff, a case that most law students read in their civil procedure casebook. In addition to the story, stay to the end for the rule of law from the case. Hi, this is Bo Baez, and today I want to talk to you about Pennoyer v. Neff, a case that I read during the first year of law school and which is still required reading in many civil procedure courses. The Supreme Court case revolves around three people: Marcus Neff, the plaintiff, Sylvester Pennoyer, the defendant, and the main figure in our story today, John Hipple Mitchell, a U.S. Senator when the case was decided. Mitchell was born with the name John Mitchell Hipple in Pennsylvania. He became a school teacher and was forced to marry a 15-year-old student who he got pregnant. He then became a lawyer, but decided he was unhappy in Pennsylvania, so in 1860 he left his wife, stole today's equivalent of $112,000 in client funds, and left for California with his mistress. When his mistress got sick, Hipple abandoned her in California, moved up to Oregon, and there changed his last name from Hipple to Mitchell. Neff needed legal help in securing land that he was trying to get under the Federal Donation Act, a federal law to encourage people to move to Oregon. So Neff went to Mitchell for legal advice. Before Neff received legal title to the land he had settled, he left Oregon, at which point Mitchell filed suit for unpaid legal bills. Under Oregon law, Mitchell was required to provide notice by publication if the defendant could not be found in Oregon. Now, apparently, Oregon law did not specify the type of publication, so Mitchell placed the notice in a Methodist publication called the Pacific Christian Advocate. Almost certainly a ploy to make sure that Neff would never find out about the lawsuit against him. Of course, Neff did not show up for trial, so Mitchell won the case in early 1866. But Mitchell held on to the judgment for a few months until he received notice that the federal government had in fact given legal title to Neff for the land that he had settled. Now, this fact is important as Neff did not legally own the property in Oregon until after the trial was over. Mitchell then purchased the land at auction and a few days later assigned the land to Pennoyer, a person who was eventually to become a governor of the state of Oregon. Now, let's fast forward 8 years when in 1874, Neff suddenly shows up and claims that the land was still his, claiming that the Oregon courts did not have jurisdiction over him at the time of the original lawsuit. By this time, Mitchell was one of Oregon's 2 U.S. senators, though he was not a named party in the lawsuit. The case made its way all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which held Oregon did not have jurisdiction over Neff under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Now, I always find it interesting when people talk about the good old days, when people were more moral than they are today. Now, frankly, there's nothing new under the sun. When Mitchell became a U.S. Senator, it was revealed that he had never divorced his first wife back in Pennsylvania, which meant that he was a bigamist. Just before Mitchell's second election to the Senate, the newspapers published a series of letters proving that Mitchell had had a 5-year affair with his current wife's sister. Mitchell, nonetheless, won re-election. In 1905, Senator Mitchell was convicted of federal land fraud and sentenced to 6 months in prison. Before the Senate could expel him, he died from complications related to some dental work. You'll be glad to know that since he died a senator, the Senate did vote to cover his funeral expenses. I'd like to send out a shout out to Dean Wendy Perdue at the University of Richmond School of Law, who taught me Pennoyer v. Neff when I was a law student at Georgetown. Now, for the rule of law. A court has jurisdiction to hear a lawsuit involving an out-of-state resident when the state court has personal jurisdiction over the out-of-state resident, or when the out-of-state resident owns property in the state. Neff won this case because he was not in Oregon at the time the lawsuit began, and he did not have legal title to the property at the time of the lawsuit. He received legal title from the federal government after Mitchell's legal billing lawsuit. If you like this episode, hit the like button. Also, let me know in the comments section how my videos are helping you, and tell me what topics you want me to cover in a future episode. We have many other episodes, so feel free to explore. Also, at learnlawbetter.com, you will find more free resources to help you succeed, including our newsletter, blog posts, and exam bank. Thank you for watching.